Imagine trying to tell a 5-minute story to a friend about your boss, a golden retriever, and a missing wallet, but, without ever using the words he, it, or which.
Oh, wow. That would be a complete nightmare.
Right. You would sound like, well, a broken robot in about 30 seconds. Every sentence would become this heavy, agonizingly slow construction project where you are hauling massive specific nouns back and forth just to keep the listener oriented.
The cognitive load for the listener would just be unbearable. I mean, you would lose their attention entirely because their brain is spending all its energy parsing those repetitive, heavy nouns instead of actually visualizing the narrative you're trying to share.
Exactly. And we totally take for granted that we don't speak like that. We navigate a linguistic landscape that is incredibly sleek. So, welcome to today's deep dive where we are uncovering exactly how that works for you.
We really are.
We are looking at the invisible architecture of English communication today. Pronouns. And whether you are prepping a massive presentation or you just want to navigate an informal chat with native-level fluidity, understanding this hidden machinery, well, it kind of changes the game.
It does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source materials we are synthesizing today, they aren't simply a dry catalog of grammar rules. They actually reveal why these structural shortcuts matter so much in shaping precision, tone, and even the subtle social cues of cultural etiquette.
No, totally.
We are really looking at how to manipulate language to lower the cognitive burden on your listener.
Okay, let's unpack this. I like to think of pronouns as the highly trained stunt doubles of language. They are these agile professionals stepping in for the bulky real-world nouns so the sentence itself doesn't just collapse under its own weight.
I love that analogy.
Thanks. But before we ask these stunt doubles to perform complex, multi-clause acrobatic flips, we have to look at the ground floor.
Right, the foundational blocks, establishing who is generating the action, who is absorbing the impact of that action, and where things are physically anchored in space.
Yeah, so let's start with that outward flow of action, the fundamental split between subject pronouns and object pronouns. We pulled 5 quick examples from the research to show you how aggressive this shape-shifting actually is.
This is a huge shift.
It really is. Consider a basic introduction. The subject is the generator. I am a student. But the moment that same person receives an action, the stunt double entirely morphs. Please call me tomorrow.
The word fundamentally redesigns itself to signal its new job to the listener. So I does the existing, and me absorbs the phone call.
Right. But then you encounter the outliers that just, refuse to shift. If I compliment someone, you're a good singer, and then I offer assistance, I will help you, the stunt double remains completely static.
English creates an interesting friction right there. Because you operate as both the generator and the receiver, the surrounding sentence structure has to work a little harder to provide context. The placement in the sentence is really the only thing telling the listener who is doing what.
And that friction is exactly why the third-person shifts are so crucial. Like, imagine we were talking about a male colleague. He plays football.
Right.
But when the focus shifts to a superior reprimanding him, it becomes the teacher is talking to him. Or, say, a female colleague. She works in a hospital. But when she extends an olive branch to a new acquaintance, it's she invited her.
Think about the alternative if that shift didn't exist. She invited she.
Oh, that sounds so wrong.
It does. The listener's cognitive parsing engine would just violently stall out trying to figure out if you were talking about one woman or 2 distinct women. The shift from she to her is a vital audio cue.
And it applies to collectives as well, right? Like, we are friends. But when a family member steps in to drive, our uncle is taking us.
Native speakers make the we to us transition on pure instinct. But when someone is learning the language, missing that specific handoff, saying something like, him is my brother instead of he is my brother, it immediately shatters the illusion of fluency. The underlying logic of the sentence just fractures.
So we have our actors and our receivers. But sometimes the goal isn't an action at all. Sometimes it's just spatial orientation. We just need to point.
Right, the pointing words.
Which brings us to demonstrative pronouns, this, that, these, and those. The linguistic laser pointers. You use them to indicate proximity, near or far, and volume, singular or plural. But looking at the cultural notes in our sources, I actually have a major bone to pick with phone etiquette.
Oh, you mean the spatial logic of a telephone call?
Yes. Why on earth do I say, hi, this is Peter, but then I ask, is that Sarah? If we are engaged in the exact same phone call, are we sharing the same conversational space? Why am I this and she is that?
It's weird, right? But it reveals a fascinating physical anchor built deeply into English. This is conceptually bound to the immediate physical proximity of the speaker. You are holding your own receiver. Your voice is originating in your own physical space.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Therefore, this is Peter. The person on the other end is physically miles away, so your brain instinctively points the linguistic laser pointer out into the distance across the city to ask, is that Sarah?
Wow. The physical geography dictates the grammar, even through a digital connection. That completely reframes how I think about a phone call.
It's pretty wild, and taking it a step further, the sources highlight a really pervasive error when people use these spatial pointers with plurals.
Oh, like what?
You frequently hear, these is my friends. It's a mechanical mismatch. These requires a wide laser pointer to indicate a group, but the verb behaves like a narrow, singular beam.
Oh, right.
It has to be, these are my friends. The bandwidth of the pointer must match the bandwidth of the noun.
That makes a lot of sense. So we are pretty good at pointing at things we can see clearly. But what happens when you're pointing into a fog? Like when you don't actually know the specific identity of what you were talking about or the exact quantity.
That's when we transition from a precise laser pointer to something more akin to like rendering software in a video game. We are entering the territory of indefinite pronouns, some, any, and no.
Okay, you mentioned video game rendering. How does that actually translate to these words?
Well, when a computer renders a massive open-world game, it doesn't waste processing power drawing every individual leaf on a tree that is 3 miles away. It just generates a green blur.
Oh, sure.
Indefinite pronouns allow the human brain to do the exact same thing. They bypass the heavy lifting of exact quantification. You don't say, I need exactly $3.50. You just say, I want some money. It saves immense cognitive processing power for both the speaker and the listener.
The source outlines this incredibly elegant, almost mathematical formula for this core trio. Some is designated for affirmative statements. I want some money. Anything handles the negative statements and the interrogative ones, the questions. Did you buy any bread? Or I didn't buy any bread.
Exactly.
And then no acts as a negative multiplier against a positive verb. I have no time. The verb have is positive, but the pronoun turns the total value to 0.
It is a really clean system. Positive, negative, 0.
But hold on, our sources list a few glaring exceptions to this elegant math, and I kind of want to challenge the rule here.
Okay, go for it.
If I say to you, take any book you like, the verb take is an affirmative command. It's positive. Didn't I just shatter the formula by deploying any there?
You didn't shatter it, you just triggered exception 2. Deploying any in a strictly affirmative sentence radically alters the underlying meaning. It stops being a matter of an unknown quantity and it becomes a statement of unrestricted freedom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Take any book means the specific identity of the book is entirely irrelevant. The red one, the blue one, it doesn't matter. It completely removes the boundaries.
That is a wildly powerful shift for a 3-letter word.
Let's actually slow down and look at the psychology of exception 1, which deals with using some in a question.
Yeah.
If you are hosting a dinner party and you ask a guest, would you like any coffee? You are technically following the grammatical rule for questions.
Right, but as a guest, if you ask me that, I feel like I'd be imposing. It sounds a little cold.
Precisely. Any implies a void. It implies doubt that the coffee even exists or that you really want to give it to them. When we offer something or when we make a request expecting a yes, we swap any for some.
Oh, see.
Would you like some coffee? Psychologically assumes the presence of the coffee and the positive outcome of the interaction. It basically creates a tangible, warm offering out of thin air.
Here is where it gets really interesting for you as a listener. Once you grasp the processing power of some, any, and no, you unlock an entire secondary vocabulary for free. The compound pronouns, the body, thing, where, and one families.
Oh, I love these. They piggyback on the exact same mathematical rules, but attach themselves to people, objects, and locations.
Yeah. Let's build a scenario to demonstrate how seamlessly this covers all our bases. Imagine you are trapped in a horribly designed escape room with a group of friends.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. So everybody loves a good puzzle, but nobody knows the answer to the first riddle. So you turn to your friend and say, let's find something to pry this door open. But wait, the crowbar is nowhere in this toolbox. Is anyone even looking for clues? I can't find a way out anywhere.
A high-stress but grammatically flawless scenario.
Thank you.
But really, notice how the rendering engine handles the different variables there. Let's find something that's an affirmative statement, some plus thing.
Right.
The crowbar is nowhere, that's a positive verb. Negative location, no plus where. Is anyone looking? Is a question, so we shift back to any plus one. The underlying code remains incredibly consistent, allowing you to discuss every person, place, or object in the universe without possessing a single specific noun.
It's so efficient. So we've covered actions flowing outward to a receiver, and we've navigated the foggy unknown quantities. But there is a massive blind spot here. What happens when the action turns inward? When the stunt doubles we started with completely fail us?
Ah, you were talking about the reflexive pronouns, myself, yourself, themselves.
Yeah, because if I'm chopping vegetables and the knife slips and I say, "I cut me," it sounds primal. It sounds like two separate entities are fighting in the kitchen.
It really does, and that is exactly why language developed the grammatical boomerang. When an action originates from a subject and lands on that exact same subject, we need a distinct, unavoidable signal to tell the listener's cognitive parsing engine to stop looking for second person.
The boomerang.
Exactly. I cut myself. The action flies out and boomerangs right back to the point of origin.
The sources detail two other crucial deployments of the boomerang as well. First is the emphatic use. This is purely for stress. Like, the CEO herself signed the contract.
And the sentence structurally survives without it. I mean, the CEO signed the contract makes perfect sense, but inserting the reflexive pronoun forcefully eliminates any doubt. It confirms she didn't send an assistant or an intern. She executed the action personally.
Right. And the final use is pairing the word by with the reflexive to indicate isolation or lack of assistance. I built this engine by myself.
It acts as an absolute boundary around the subject.
Speaking of myself, I have to bring up a massive pet peeve of
Oh,
mine.
I think I know where this is going.
You see this in corporate communications constantly. A vendor will send an email saying, "Please contact myself if you have any questions." I know they're wearing a very expensive suit while typing it, hoping to sound elevated, but isn't that just a catastrophic grammatical failure?
It absolutely is. What's fascinating here is the psychology of the hypercorrection. People in professional environments often harbor this deep anxiety about using the word me.
Well, totally.
They feel it sounds too simplistic, almost childlike. So in an effort to project authority, they grab the boomerang when they have absolutely no business using it.
They throw the boomerang into a crowd.
Exactly. Mechanically, the subject of that corporate email is an implied you. As in you, the client, should do the contacting. The object receiving the contact is the writer. The subject and the object are two entirely different people.
Right, they aren't the same.
No. The action moves outward in a straight line. It does not bounce back. Inserting a reflexive pronoun, there is a structural collapse. It must be, "Please contact me."
So, a note to everyone listening, please put down the corporate boomerang. Trust the word me. It conveys far more quiet confidence than a hyper-corrected error.
Simplicity is usually the hallmark of true fluency.
Very well said. So we have a robust cast of individual mechanics now. The shifting actors and receivers, the spatial pointers, the indefinite rendering engines, and the internal boomerangs. But human thought isn't isolated. We don't speak in staccato, independent bursts.
No, we need architects of complexity to bind these simple ideas together into sophisticated multi-clause thoughts. We need relative pronouns, who, which, and that.
I envision these as the heavy-duty trailer hitches of language. You take two completely independent cars of thought, and you elegantly hitch them together so they can travel down the highway as a single, fluid sentence.
It's a great visual.
So the baseline rule is pretty straightforward. Who and that are strictly for hitching people, like the woman who called. And that are for hitching objects and animals, like the book which fell.
And we shouldn't overlook the compression algorithm of whose. It establishes possession across a clause. Instead of saying, "I met an artist, the paintings of the artist are famous," we compress it with a single hitch. "I met the artist whose paintings are famous."
That compression is brilliant. But I gotta be honest, my palms start to sweat a little when the sources dive into the golden rule of omission.
Yeah.
The idea that sometimes you can just entirely drop the relative pronoun. You leave the trailer hitch completely invisible. On the fly, in the middle of a fast-paced conversation, knowing when it's safe to drop that word feels like incredibly high-stakes grammar.
I get that. It feels daunting. But it is actually governed by a very strict logical tracking system. It all depends on whether the pronoun is acting as the subject or the object inside that specific hitched-on clause.
Okay, walk me through it.
Let's look at the mechanics. Take the sentence, "The movie that we watched was exciting." Inside the hitched clause that we watched, who is generating the action?
Well, we are. We as the subject doing the watching.
Therefore, the word that is replacing the movie, which is merely absorbing the action, it is the object, because the clause already has a clear working subject, which is we. The object pronoun becomes structurally redundant. You can safely delete it.
Oh, so the movie we watched was exciting.
Exactly. The hitch turns invisible, but the connection holds.
Okay, so the presence of a new actor allows the previous object to vanish. When does that connection break, though?
When the pronoun is the primary actor for the new clause, consider this one. I need someone who can help me. Inside the clause who can help me, the word who is the entity generating the help. It is the subject.
Right, because there's no other actor there.
Exactly. If you drop it and say, I need someone can help me, the verb can help is left without a driver. The sentence crashes into a ditch.
So if the noun following the pronoun is doing the action, the pronoun is just a receiver, and you can drop it, the movie that we watched. But if the pronoun itself is doing the heavy lifting, it stays. The person who helped.
That tracking system is the key to mastering omission.
Okay, that actually makes perfect sense. And that brings up a critical point about how our brains process these massive multi-car thoughts. Sometimes we are hitching on vital load-bearing cargo, and sometimes the extra car is just, decorative.
Right.
Our sources spend significant time on defining versus non-defining clauses, and apparently a single comma dictates reality here.
Well, punctuation isn't just marks on a page. It represents spoken audio cues. Commas dictate pitch and tone, signaling to the listener how to process the incoming data.
Let's hear the difference then.
Imagine I say, the book that you recommended was brilliant. There are no commas there. That is a defining clause. The information is load-bearing.
Meaning I really need it.
Yes. If I just walked up and said, the book was brilliant, you would have no idea what I was talking about. The clause that you recommended defines the specific object in the universe I am referencing.
Load-bearing data, no commas, no pauses.
Now, alter the audio cues. This book, which you recommended, was brilliant. By inserting those pauses, the commas, you are telling the listener's brain that the hitched clause is non-defining. It is entirely disposable. You already specified this book. The recommendation is just a bonus piece of decorative trivia.
So the commas basically act as a spoken bypass valve. The listener knows they can discard that information and the core architecture of the sentence survives. And the rule from the source is that you can never use the word that in one of those disposable comma-separated clauses.
Never. That is strictly reserved for the load-bearing defining clauses. For the disposable extra information, you must use which for things or who for people.
So what does this all mean for how we actually operate in formal versus informal environments? Especially when we throw prepositions into the machinery, words like to with on. There's an entire section on formal prepositional phrases. Be honest with me, does anyone actually use the word whom outside of a courtroom?
It's rare, but it reveals a massive behavioral split in how we handle English. In highly formal, rigid environments like an academic paper or a legal brief, the preposition is dragged to the absolute front of the relative clause, acting as a formal guard at the door. And you must pair it with whom or which. So you'd write, the person to whom you spoke is the director.
If I deployed that sentence at a casual dinner party, people would assume I was a Victorian time traveler. It feels incredibly stiff.
Which is exactly why spoken conversational English actively dismantles that rigid structure. In everyday speech, we grab that preposition and we strand it all the way at the end of the clause. By doing that, we downgrade the formality, allowing us to revert to who, or that, or utilize our omission rule and drop the pronoun entirely.
Oh, I see.
So the person to whom you spoke transforms into the person who you spoke to.
Or if we drop it completely, the person you spoke to is the director. That is the sound of native-level fluency. Knowing when to abandon the rigid textbook guardrails and let the prepositions drift to the end of the sentence.
It really is a calculated relaxation of the rules.
Well, let's look at the ground we've covered for you today. We started by mapping the shape-shifting stunt doubles, tracking the flow of action from subject to object.
We calibrated our physical laser pointers and then switched to the rendering software of indefinite quantities, managing the known and the unknown.
We threw the reflexive boomerangs inward, hopefully retiring the hyper-corrected corporate myself forever.
Yes, please. And we engineered complex thoughts using relative trailer hitches, using audio cues and commas to signal what data is vital and what is disposable.
It is a staggering amount of invisible machinery operating behind the scenes of a simple conversation.
Mastering this architecture doesn't just help you pass a written exam. It fundamentally upgrades your operational bandwidth. You become a clearer, more persuasive communicator because you are actively managing the cognitive load of everyone listening to you.
Which actually brings me to a final, slightly provocative thought I want to leave you with, building on that golden rule of omission. We spend an incredible amount of energy obsessing over the precise words we choose to speak or write. But a massive component of advanced, truly fluid English is actually defined by what we actively choose not to say.
The engineered empty spaces.
Exactly. When we utilize that omission rule, when we confidently state the movie we watched instead of the movie that we watch, we are intentionally leaving a void in the air. We are trusting the listener's brain to perfectly bridge the gap, to feel the magnetic pull of that invisible trailer hitch without us having to explicitly sound it out. So, next time you are listening to someone speak with effortless authority, don't just track the nouns and verbs. Listen for the empty spaces. Try to catch those invisible, omitted pronouns floating in the silence between their words, holding the entire complex structure together.
That silence really is the ultimate indicator of mastery.
It really is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep pointing those lasers, keep catching those boomerangs, and we'll see you in the next one.